Hello everyone and welcome back to Common Sense Crypto channel. As with you always, this is Rich doing another video today on XRP. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day today wherever you are in this great world. We're going to talk about XRP. I'm going to talk about clarity in this video as well. Coinbase CEO, US crypto policy, threat to national security. Ripple exec reacts. Now we see here, through the session, the speakers aim to highlight the potential detrimental effects the U.S. policy on cryptocurrencies has on the country's national security. Faryar Shirzad, who also worked on the U.S. National Security Council for 3 years, clarified that national security also entails the strength of the United States in terms of finance and technological innovation. So Gary Gensler is a threat to national security. He's the one pushing innovation right out of this country on a daily basis. Girard emphasized that crypto technology is a huge next profound step in the evolution of the internet. He stressed that the global battle among nations to gain an edge in the crypto and digital asset scene will ultimately determine which nation will be the leader in the future of the internet and its impact on economy and financial systems. Ripple exec reacts. Responding to the views shared in the session, Susan Friedman, head of policy at Ripple, acknowledged that the lack of regulatory clarity for the crypto industry in the U.S. is pushing business activity abroad and away from the country. That's why regulatory clarity is so important. If Ripple was to get that win right now against the SEC and XRP got regulatory clarity, every single bank in this country would be able to use on-demand liquidity. It would strengthen our entire banking system. Chair Gary Gensler says existing law provides clarity for which digital assets are securities versus commodities. Yet he refuses to publicly say if the second largest digital asset is a security, despite previously calling it a commodity. Take a listen.
As you noted back in 2018, you noted in your testimony that at the time, the SEC did not view Bitcoin and Ether as securities. Is that still your view?
I think you're referring to when I was at MIT, testimony I gave in front of this committee in 2019, if I remember. And I was speaking to what the SEC career staff had said.
But is it your view now that that Bitcoin and Ether are not securities?
No, I'm not going to get into any one token, but I think the securities laws are quite clear. If you're raising money from somebody else, and that's something the investing public believes that they anticipate or have a reasonable anticipation of profits based on the efforts of others, that fits within the securities law.
But that was in 2014, and in 2018, the securities
About the second largest digital asset.
And that is why we will never get clarity from the SEC. This is why we're still tied up in a court case for over 2 years because Gary Gensler is an absolute clown. And you see him there. He can't answer the question because he doesn't want to piss off the people that actually are paying him in the background. The EU Parliament recently passed one of the most significant pieces of legislation for crypto. The MiCA framework aims to provide regulatory clarity and consistency for crypto businesses in the EU. So over there, they're pushing ahead. They're so close to regulatory clarity. MiCA is important for the industry. It will provide a clear and consistent set of rules for crypto businesses that operate in the EU, reducing regulatory uncertainty. That's why we're going to watch business after business leave this country and move to the EU and other places like Abu Dhabi. Again, very crypto friendly. Right now, a third world country can become a crypto hub and all of a sudden their economy will skyrocket. Operation Choke Point 2.0 is the U.S. government's alleged coordinated effort to discourage banks from working with crypto firms under the guise of ensuring safety and stability. They're so kind, they always have your best interest at heart. But while they're pushing the banks to push away crypto, is that what could have possibly happened here? Bank of America removed from Ripple.com. And I was actually shocked by this, but a lot of people are talking about this all over crypto Twitter right now. Because remember, we always expected Bank of America to be using Ripple and XRP for that ODL once the case wraps up. Maybe Bank of America said, well, until we get that regulatory clarity, Ripple, please take our name off of your website. Is that what's really going on? Influenced by these people like Gary Gensler and politicians like Elizabeth Warren and all these anti-crypto organizations out there probably putting pressure on Bank of America. But who knows? I still think Bank of America is going to utilize Ripple and XRP. It's just a matter of time. Caught red-handed, SEC Chair Gensler blamed crypto for Signature Bank's failure during his congressional testimony. Today, New York Department of Financial Services Superintendent Adrian Harris refuted that in front of the same committee. Take a listen.
Well, if I could just note something about you mentioned your hearing about the recent events in the markets, and I would note there were 3 banks that failed in those handful of days, those 4 or 5 days. And 2 of those banks, the first and the third that failed, Silvergate and Signature, were engaged in the crypto business. I mean, some would say they were, crypto banks. So it's interesting just how this was all had some crypto narrative as well.
It is a misnomer that the failure of Signature Bank was related to crypto. What we saw with Signature Bank is that it had a new-fashioned bank run, and the outflow of deposits were from a broad depositor base, including wholesale food vendors, fiduciaries, trust accounts, law firms. And in fact, the outflow of crypto deposits were in exact proportion to their representation in the depositor base overall. And in fact, some of those deposit outflows were actually pre-planned. So it's, of course, unfortunate that there was a run on the bank at Signature prompted by what we saw with SVB, but it is not the case that the failure of Signature was related to crypto.
So there you have it. It was not related to crypto, but yet Gary is pushing that narrative. Why? Because his handlers have him saying this. Because his handlers are telling him, you need to take down crypto. You need to call every crypto a security. You need to pull them into court. And that's why we are in the situation we're in now. Elizabeth Warren is pushing the Senate to ban your crypto wallet. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren is once again spearing the crypto industry. Now, if you take a look, she doesn't ever talk about this, though. 2022 anti-crypto U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren had close ties with Sam Bankman-Fried. According to Shea, Bankman-Fried's father, Joe Bankman, endorsed the bill introduced by Senator Elizabeth Warren in April 2016. His mother, Barbara Fried, is in charge of the Political Action Committee that helps secure Democratic funding from Silicon Valley banks and companies. Shea points out the irony in Warren's response to the FTX collapse, with the Massachusetts senator generalizing that crypto industry needs more aggressive enforcement and stronger rules, while failing to mention Bankman-Fried's $39 million donation to her political party for the U.S. midterm elections. She doesn't talk about that while she's trashing crypto. You know, she doesn't understand it. She should just walk away from it. Then there's this. So Operation Mockingbird. Now, this is how they set the narrative all throughout the world when they need to create a narrative. Take a listen.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms
to push their own personal bias, and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And right there is why you always have people outside of crypto never wanting to come into crypto. Because these politicians take these narratives to the mainstream media news and then they sell it on to the rest of the people. That's why when you go and talk to somebody about crypto, they're like, crypto's dead. Look what happened with that FTX, you know, and you try to explain it, but they don't want to believe you because it's been programmed into them by the mainstream media news that crypto's dead. It's not a good investment and you should never buy crypto. And, you know, it's a travesty because there's a lot of people out there that could enrich themselves from crypto. Really wish our government, Treasury, IRS, SEC, CFTC, etc. would get on the same page here. I feel like the entirety of crypto is on some diabolical game of whose line is it anyway, where everything's made up and the regulatory clarity don't matter. You know, we have the IRS pushing one narrative. You have the SEC calling everything a security. You have the CFTC calling cryptocurrencies commodities. And at the same time, you have a handful of politicians that are pushing for anti-crypto. If at one point everybody could agree on something, even if it's negative, at least then people could come out and fight back against whatever narrative they're pushing. But you have so many different views. Some are pro-crypto, some are anti-crypto. That's why regulatory clarity hangs in the balance. Were congressmen able to speak freely about Ripple before the SEC lawsuit? In February 2017, Congressman Patrick McHenry stated Ripple was a fantastic example of DLT technology. Nowadays, it seems like they're being struck down by lightning if they even mutter the word Ripple. Take a listen.
You have an amalgamation of technology companies like Ripple and others who are trying to integrate it all, but they're existing outside the regulatory regime and needing to partner with banks. What's the solution here? Because the problem is real.
So, you know, people talk about the solution set around distributed ledger, around Ripple. Ripple's a fantastic example of this sort of breakthrough technology, but then they have to reverse engineer how to comply with the existing regime. So this is why we have to have a different orientation with regulation. Now, it's not to say regulation is good or bad, right? We're not going to get in this debate about whether or not regulation is good or bad. It's good if you like the end result. It's bad if you don't like the end result. Simple as that, right? So it's Potter Stewart's defining, if you will, regulation. You'll know how you like it.
Take notice how he said Ripple has fantastic technology. And that's probably why he went after Gary so hard. For 2 years, Democrats gave Gary Gensler a pass for his disastrous agenda. It's time for accountability. From his destructive climate disclosure rule to his regulation by enforcement of digital assets, Chair Gensler's agenda has weakened capital markets and stifled innovation. I think maybe he holds XRP. How can you say, listen, this technology is fantastic? He probably knows there's a lot of money to be made with XRP. Maybe that's why he went after Gary so hard. You know, I look at it like this. There's some people out there that actually understand this technology, understand that it can be very useful in a new financial system. And then there's people that don't understand it, so they just want to get rid of it. That's what's really going on in our government. Ripple is competing with the liquidity of Citi and the messaging of Swift, but in one, because we are both messaging and liquidity. Brad Garlinghouse, one company that solves everything. right there. You know, and I think a lot of the reason why everything is being held up is because Ripple is the biggest threat going. XRP threatens everything. And, you know, a liquidity crisis is going to strike here in the US. It's just a matter of time. That's when everybody is going to embrace XRP. That's why I will never sell it. That's why you should never sell your XRP. Hold on to it for dear life. It will set you financially free. With that said, I'm going to wrap up this video. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you watching my videos. We'll see you in the next one. Have a great night.